What's up guys, and welcome to another video.
Well, as you probably guessed from that wasn't my voice, but it might be a voice that you recognise because today I've got another special guest on the show about to take that seat. I'm sure from the voice you already know who it is, but just in case you don't, this is what he does.
As a car moves quickly through the air, the brake ducts channel some of the cooler airstream into the brakes to do this job.
That's right, well you may not recognise his face, but you definitely recognise his voice. This is of course Stuart from ChainBear. ChainBear F1, you will all know that channel, I know, massive Formula 1 channel, one of my favourites, I know it's one of yours. Stu, welcome along, welcome to the window.
Thanks very much for having me, it's a very nice window.
Well look, thanks for coming down mate, I've been a fan of your stuff for a long time. I watch a lot of your videos, they're instantly recognisable, the kind of colours, the graphics, and they're really good at explaining stuff. What I don't know is anything about you, because your face hasn't been in many of your videos, just one I think at the end of last year.
Yep.
I want to know a bit more about you. What is your background? How on earth did you get into starting this YouTube channel? Let's start with that.
Well, the very first videos I made on my channel I made about 18 months before I really started just dedicating myself to the videos, and the style you know now kind of took over.
Yeah.
The first video I made was around the point that Pirelli or the FIA brought in that 3-tyre compound rule.
Yeah.
And no one had done a very good job of explaining how that worked, or how many tyres you were supposed to use, or when.
Well, it wasn't the simplest things to explain in the first place, was it?
No, and I saw a lot of people just losing their minds on social media about it. So I thought I'd take some time, dig out all the complicated FIA worded regulations on it, and then just try and make a short little video, which I made in PowerPoint, to try and make it a little bit more digestible for people, because the FIA are not the best at explaining their own rules to people.
And did that first video immediately take off? I mean, were you surprised by the reaction to it?
Well, I didn't have a big following on my F1 Twitter account. I'd done a couple of articles and content for a Formula 1 website called Side Podcast In, so a few people knew who I was. So I made that video, I put it on my Twitter, I told a few people about it. I didn't really think about it for a while. I kind of went off and went back to my life and stuff, and then 2 weeks later I came back and it had like 40,000 views, and I was like, oh wow, okay. People clearly had a hunger for this topic. So I made a few more videos. I made something about how wet tyres work, because I thought that was quite interesting. And really, my life at that time was quite busy, so I just I didn't really think about it. And at that, while I wasn't actually doing anything, my channel was just sort of growing with people waiting to see if I'd do anything else. And then halfway through 2017, I left the job I was in, which was in maths education.
Okay.
Which very similar to the way I work. It was all about sort of communicating ideas visually.
But not F1 related at that point? Not
F1 related, but just about sort of... well, the charity I worked for was about the idea that everyone could understand maths. It was just about reaching the people, reaching kids, communicating with them.
So there is a real crossover, really, isn't there, in terms of getting a complicated subject across in a very clear way.
Exactly, and I learned a lot there about that and about different methods to do that. So, and I was also making videos there for the teaching professionals in that charity. So then I left my job there, and I suddenly had this time on my hands, and I thought, let's see what other topics people are interested in. I seem to have this base of followers that are sort of waiting for me to do something, so that's when I got back into it again.
But you'd always been an F1 fan, even if just from the sidelines. You'd always watched the sport or followed the sport, had you? Yeah,
very much. I was, when I was very young, in fact younger than I can remember, my family made friends with a couple who would later become my sort of extended family. That's how close we all were. And he was a big motorsport fan. He'd race rallies, like private rallies, get a heap of junk and do a banger race or do a rally. And so he would run off and take me to local events. I mean, we grew up in sort of similar places. Brands Hatch was my local circuit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We both went to grammar schools in Kent.
Did you? Did you? I didn't know that. Okay.
And he'd take me around things, and that's when I got into all kinds of motorsport. And I wasn't technically literate back then, but that's when I got into it. And then when I was in my teens, I suddenly got into like Formula 1 big time, and sort of just before the Ferrari renaissance.
So can you remember a driver or a team that really sort of, piqued your imagination to get you involved? Who were the stars of the day?
When I first started watching Formula One like properly, honestly, Damon Hill in the Jordan was the
Yeah.
um,
He just lives around the corner.
Really, does he?
He does. Yeah.
Should have him over. Give him that seat. They were a charismatic team.
Yeah,
they were sort of having this bit of an underdog story with occasional wins. Damon had just come off his championship. And
I mean, that was it though, wasn't that? Was it? It was the underdog story that was the real selling point for them, because everyone loves an underdog, and those days have just gone from F1 now, haven't they? Because I talked the other day on here about the fact that it's highly unlikely we're ever going to get like a Leicester City moment that you've had in football, where a real underdog could come through. You might get the occasional good result, but you're never going to get a championship win from a smaller team because of the way that Formula One works now.
And that's something I lament. I still see. I think I maybe have a bit more hope than you. I still have it because like Mercedes obviously are born out of an underdog moment of Ron GP, which is a sort of strange. And Red Bull actually, a drinks company that bought the Stuart Jaguar team.
Yeah, I suppose if you look at it that way,
But both of those teams have now become these sort of massive juggernauts.
That's right. They're not going into a season as an underdog, are they? Their history was perhaps underdog based, but they're not. What I'm thinking is you're not going to get, or it's highly unlikely you're going to get a small team with. Essentially, it comes down to money, doesn't it? So an underfunded team, which Jordan certainly were back at those in the day, are very unlikely nowadays to be able to have the opportunity to have a sustained championship assault, even through some good fortune on occasional races. It's just not going to happen, is it? And it's a real shame. In my book, it's a real shame that we don't have that element, that widespread unpredictability across the grid, which I hope we can, at some point, get back towards.
I think that's a bit of a contradiction Formula One finds itself in, because you speak to, or you listen to a lot of fans speaking, and they get really frustrated whenever they slow the cars down or restrict the rules. While at the same time, if you had unrestricted rules, everything goes to the well-funded teams.
Yeah. It's not easy.
I'm a big fan of the budget cap.
Yeah.
That people keep trying to happen, because at least it gives everyone a chance to get on a bit of an even playing field.
Do you know what I loved? One of my favourite ideas that never happened, and I think this was touted, I can't remember, maybe 7-8 years ago, which was an idea of a budget cap. So if you signed up to the budget cap, you had technical freedom. So the rules opened right up, but as long as you signed up to abiding by this budget restriction, which kind of breeds innovation, but within a kind of capped limit. And it never went anywhere because, for the same reason nothing does. The big teams don't want a budget cap. But I really like that idea, because I don't want to stifle innovation. I don't want to stifle the technical brilliance of these engineers, but we can't let the costs just go uncontrolled. It's a difficult one. Liberty have got a tough challenge on their hands, haven't they, over the next few years?
Yeah, they really have. And I hope they don't just throw quick snap rule changes and decision things in the hope of spicing things up, and really sit down and have a think about what's going to work. But they've got Ross Brawn on their side.
They've got good people, haven't they?
I like the way Ross Brawn thinks.
Me too. All right. Well, anyway, back to you. We've digressed. Okay, so you started off with these one or two small videos, and then it's become, I presume now, it's your job, is it? It's your life.
It is mostly, my job. It's 90% of what I do to make a living.
Yeah.
Which is slightly terrifying.
But amazing though, you found a way to make a living from a passion that you've had, which is both making videos and Formula One. And you're making
and sort of communicating.
Yeah.
It's I mean, what we do in a lot of ways is sort of a very narrow branch of science communication, isn't it? It's complicated ideas, trying to make them more digestible.
And what was because I think most people will have followed you through the graphic-based videos, the explainers, which have been brilliant for so many people to help through some of these complicated rule changes and complicated situations that Formula One throws up all the time. But at the end of last year, you suddenly appeared on a video, didn't you? Your end of season review, which was an epic, almost movie scale thing, which I know you've told me took so much work, and it is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it at the end. But what was the thinking behind that, and of putting yourself suddenly in a video, and then moving forward? Where do you see your channel ending up or going for 2019?
Well, that's the big question. Actually, I've been thinking myself. So putting myself in the video, I had no reason not to put myself in the video, other than there was no need for it. I was sort of explaining the animated format worked really well for what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And sort of I also didn't really have the equipment to self-insert myself into the video
okay.
at the time. And then for a while people were like, face reveal, what's your face look like? And suddenly I was under this pressure to have some kind of face that would live up to whatever
That is a lot of pressure, isn't it? When people know your voice so well.
So and then I just thought, yeah, I'm not hiding my face, but now I'm like, it has to be some kind of weird event.
I mean, did you spend hours in makeup beforehand, or was there?
I really should have, shouldn't I? Some of those shots. I mean, and the video itself didn't come out of just revealing myself, but I really wanted to kind of broaden what the channel was about, kind of explore what else I can. I mean, I'm a Formula 1 fan, you're a Formula 1 fan, we're all followed by people who are hungry for content and just ideas, and I just really wanted to kind of look back at the year in a slightly irreverent way that the community does, in that there were certain jokes and sticking points we all kind of like to crowd around. And I was sort of inspired a bit by the yearly reviews Charlie Brooker used to do at the end. It was sort of a little bit sarcastic, but maybe a lot of love. So luckily people took to it, because I was a bit nervous about it.
And what did you make of 2018, like in a nutshell, without going into an hour-long epilogue? But,
sure.
What did you make of it? Good season, bad season, somewhere in the middle?
I don't think it was too bad. There was lots of intrigue. I liked... quite like 2016, it sort of started with a lot of promise of it being a close fight between Mercedes and Ferrari all the way through, and then halfway through Ferrari couldn't quite hold it together. But it happened, it was Mercedes domination again, but in a way that kept being interesting throughout.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if you look at the results, if you look at the history books and you look at the results over the last few years, it would be very easy to look at it and say it's been so dominated, it must have been a dull period. But actually, I don't think it's been a dull period, has it? I mean, even when it was just Mercedes, the Lewis and Nico battles were sometimes quite interesting, weren't they? Both on and off the track. Yeah. Last year, like you say, Ferrari, put up a decent fight, not good enough in the end, but it was much closer. So I think actually there's a lot of complaining goes on about Formula 1, isn't there? But there's actually so much to be really kind of supportive of and to celebrate. We've got a great sport with an amazing following. And actually, if you take each race as a whole, there's always stuff to talk about afterwards. There's always, talking points. So I don't think we've got too much to complain about. There's not too much that needs drastically changing. For me, it's about constantly tweaking things, looking for ways to just make improvements, and there might only be small ones. But I don't think we need to be too upset by the state of Formula 1, do we? I
don't think so at all. No. I think we're in a nice. I mean, I prefer a little bit more competition at the top.
Yeah.
What we have benefited from in the last few years is a really strong midfield, and TV directors that have recognised that.
Yeah.
So we have been able to follow battles between Renault and what was Force India and Haas coming through, not just
as we used to watch. Gap, don't we, between the top three and the rest,
which hopefully could happen.
Do you think 2019? Then you think that could start to close up? I mean, can we? Well, let's see. The top two, let's assume, are still going to be Ferrari, Mercedes, because the advantage was so big.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to assume that's going to be something similar. Can Red Bull and Honda put up
that's the big question mark.
Yeah.
That relationship between Red Bull and Honda. Can Honda get themselves to a consistent performance level?
It is going to be fascinating, isn't it?
Are they going to take the first half of the year just to get used to it?
Yeah.
And are the teams behind them going to make a stride up? Will Red Bull come fourth or fifth this year as a kind of building year?
And the other one that really interests me is Renault, because Renault, huge amount of resource going in. They've spent a lot of money on Daniel Ricciardo. They say they've made massive improvements on the engine side, and almost every component on the car is new. So they are really going for it. And as a massive manufacturer, they need to be in that little group with the other manufacturers, don't they? So that's going to be a fascinating one to watch, I reckon.
My sort of outside impression of Renault, sort of watching them, it feels like they have this long-term plan. They're not overselling themselves, and they're making, maybe they want us to feel they're being, their confidence, but I feel like they're making the steps they want to make. They're not saying like, we want to be winning races in 2018.
I think that's fair,
so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this year. I think this is a crucial year for them to demonstrate they are moving forwards.
And then 2021 is going to be the next big reset, isn't it? Where potentially, I mean, almost anybody could make so many drastic changes. Yeah. That could be another massive shuffle. So I guess people like that, building resources, building a team with all the right people, you're looking ahead to a big rule change like that as a massive opportunity.
As soon as they identify exactly what's going to happen in 2021, which we've been waiting for.
It's been the most talked about rule change without any actual rules, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've seen some weird sketches from Ross Brawn, but not. And of course, they may not do any dramatic engine changes because that was all in aid of bringing people in who.
I looked the other day at the original statement that Liberty made, which they sent out, you might remember, a long time ago now, about what their visions are for 2021 and beyond, what they would like to achieve by that rule set. And almost nothing is going to actually come out of their original statement. The idea of attracting new engine manufacturers, they've all gone because it looks like the engines are going to stay as they are. There were so many new circuits, new venues. Again, we seem to be like promising so much and not delivering on it. So I think what's happening is Liberty are realising that what they've bought in terms of Formula One, how difficult it is to kind of cajole everybody to one place. Yeah. Something that Bernie Ecclestone was obviously pretty good at doing.
I mean, I have a lot of mixed feelings about Bernie Ecclestone that I'm not going to go into.
Don't we all?
Do you think that Formula One... Well, there are two things, really, but one has suffered from this exclusivity that Bernie, during his reign, definitely fostered, in that it's a brand, it's off limits, like only special people get to have it. Yeah. In the way that other motorsports clearly don't. They engage with their fans, they bring people in, they open up the pit lane and all kinds of things like that. Try and keep the prices affordable. I guess my other point was a completely different tangent in that, do you think Honda's re-entry into the sport in 2014-15 had a huge negative impact on other manufacturers coming in? Yeah,
I think the PR side of Honda's reintroduction to the sport was just disastrous, wasn't it? Because partly due to McLaren, on McLaren's part, and obviously Honda just failed to deliver. So it was an awful experience, and the amount of money they spent on it must have been terrifying to a new manufacturer looking on. I definitely think that was probably seen as a negative to lots of others, because if you're trying to convince your board at a manufacturer, an organisation like that, just to go and spend hundreds of millions on F1, and they're just going to look at Honda and go, why on earth would we do that? I definitely think that. And then in terms of what Bernie did, I think with what he's left a sport that he grew from nothing into this massive monster, which has been amazing, and it's created this global fan base, but we found ourselves a long way behind other sports and other industries in terms of fan engagement, the digital side. Yeah. So many areas that the rest of the world has moved forward with, and Formula One was just almost stuck in the dark ages. And Liberty are now having to. I mean, for one hand, it's a great opportunity for Liberty because that's an untapped market. Yeah. But they're now having to scrabble to sort of catch up, and because Formula One fans have been engrossed in all of what Bernie did for so long, I think Formula One fans to some extent are a bit behind the times because we've never had this digital world, or this kind of open, transparent world that other sports have. So now when you sort of offer a Formula One fan something brand new, there's a certain resistance because people don't like change, and
people really don't like change.
So it is a really tricky one, and I think that's what Liberty are kind of suddenly realising, that we can have all the vision in the world, but actually making it happen is sometimes a bit harder than they might have imagined. And it's probably going to take a bit of time. But I think, as you rightly say, they've got some of the right people in the right places. Yeah. And even if it does take a bit of time, we're probably going to get somewhere good in the end, aren't we, I reckon?
I think so. There's a lot of cynicism about Liberty.
Yeah.
I think they've got good ideas, and I think they're the right people to grow the brand in the right way.
Yeah, I agree.
I think at the moment they need to just bolster what they've got, because I think the biggest thing they've got is the name Formula One.
Yeah. Costs them a lot of money. So
but they need to prove to circuits, they need to prove to TV companies that they're worth, and advertisers that what they've got has a big audience and will continue to grow and be exciting.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, 2019 then. We've talked about the racing. We hope it's going to be closer. We hope it's going to be more of the same, but perhaps closer. Your channel for 2019. Where's that going to go? What can people expect?
Well, there's going to be more of the same core, what I call my core content, which is explaining various aspects. Hopefully, spinning out of technical changes, things that come out of testing, things that come out of races. We've got some great videos last year from just things we didn't expect to happen that we wouldn't have to explain, like
Yeah.
Vettel on the weighbridge in Brazil was a controversial and ended up being quite complicated thing to argue about.
What I like about your stuff like that is you put a funny slant on it. They are quite amusing, your videos, aren't they? There's a really serious content to it, and the explainers are great, but there's a real light-hearted edge to it, which I think people, Formula One can be a bit shy of sometimes. Sometimes it takes itself too seriously. So I think that side of it's really nice of what you do.
I'm a big fan of the soap opera aspect of the sport, which I think is a core component that maybe people don't talk about in that necessary way, but it's about characters, teams, rivalries.
It's true.
Romances, maybe. And I think that's a core of any sport, really. Whether you're trying to get a ball through a gap or a racing car around a circuit, there's it's the relationships and the teams and the love you have for certain people, and that Vettel incident in particular divided a lot of people.
It did, yeah.
Around whether you were a Vettel Ferrari fan or a Lewis fan, or were just fed up with Vettel having strops, or with the FIA having too strict rules. Or
there's a passionate fan base around this sport, isn't it, on any subject, which I love. All right, well, let's just wrap this up quickly. I've got like a few quick fire questions then that you can one word answers only. Who's going to win the title?
If I had to put money on it, I wouldn't bet against Hamilton. It's boring, but I wouldn't.
Okay. Which team's going to have the biggest bust up between its drivers?
I'm really nervous about Racing Point. Having said that, I think Stroll having his dad high up in the team.
Well, he's going to win the bust up, whichever.
That's true. Yeah, I've got to worry about Perez if he starts to get a little bit angry having to find himself a new seat. But I mean, as with last year, forcing new Racing Point those.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest disappointment?
Oh, that's a good one. It really could end up being Red Bull. Actually, that's a really interesting question.
Well, the promise has been so great for Red Bull. They've talked it up. Yeah.
It really depends. Yeah, it really depends what your expectations are.
Yeah. Okay.
For example, as a bit of a Ricciardo fan, have a lot of hope in his seat at Renault, and hoping it's more of a Hamilton type move than an Alonso type move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd be dreadfully disappointed if Renault suddenly found themselves struggling down the back of the order. So, but yeah, I think Red Bull have a massive question mark, and I mean they've got Gasly and Verstappen in there. You can't have them in the doldrums for a couple of years if they need to get to Honda.
I think some exciting. Here you go. Here's a question for you: most exciting driver of 2019? Because there's a few now, aren't there, that I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I think. I really can't wait to see Leclerc in the Ferrari up against Vettel. A lot of people are starting to say that he'll usurp Vettel, the way Ricciardo did at Red Bull. So that's exciting to see. I'm really interested to see. Actually, both Williams drivers. I know Williams are not necessarily the platform to depending on what car they bring out, to demonstrate skill, talent, character. But you've got Russell, who's had a formidable Formula 2 season, and Kubica proving himself after both absence and injury. So that's going to be I think it's going to be fascinating to see. I really hope Williams give them a car that allow us to see what they can do.
I know. So many exciting driver stories. I think Lando Norris is another one I'd really interested to see, and also I think the Sauber drivers with Kimi and Giovinazzi, I think is going to be fascinating to see, because they look like a team that are sort of on the up. They've got bigger income. Well, it's not Sauber, of course, is it? It's Alfa Romeo. But that's a team that's got investment into it. They've invested in Kimi, and that will, his experience has surely helped them grow. And Giovinazzi is not a bad driver either. So I think there's some exciting times ahead for them. All right, well, look, I think that's probably covered most things. I think really nice to see you, and nice to see your face, first of all. Is it what you expected, everybody? But look, thanks very much. I would love to can't wait to see more of what you're doing in 2019. I know you guys will already be following him as it stands, but if you're not, I will link Stuart's channel in the description of the video, so definitely go and follow him. Loads of really good technical explanations, even process explanations, explanations of events that have happened over certain Grand Prix, and loads more exciting stuff to come for 2019 by the sounds of it. So thank you very much for coming down.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully it won't be the last. Cheers.
Awesome.
That was all right, I think.
Yeah,